So whether you're brand new to Rolux or you've owned one for a while, today we're gonna be covering 5 tips and tricks on maintaining your mower, but also using your mower. So let's do it. So the first thing we wanna talk about is what everybody buys a reel mower for is your height of cut. These things can go down to about 1/8 of an inch and up to about 1 1/4 inches, maybe a little bit higher. The way that you control your height of cut is this knob right here. By turning it left, you lower the height of cut. And then by turning it right, you raise the height of cut. So by turning this knob, it will control this front roller, which will raise and lower it. On this side over here, you'll notice that there is a height of cut gauge to tell you roughly where you're at. One quick note, from the factory, they do send this at its lowest height of cut. So if you're not prepared to cut your grass at 1/8 of an inch, you may wanna raise it for the very first time you're cutting. And then you may be asking yourself, what is the perfect height of cut for my grass? Where should I cut it at to start? We recommend definitely starting at a higher height of cut and working your way down. If your grass is at 1 inch and you want to maintain it at 1/2 inch, you really don't want to go in right at 1/2 inch and scalp everything. You may want to work down incrementally so that you're just not cutting off a ton of grass at first. You may miss some strands at that point, but work your height of cut down until you figure out what works best for your yard and what works best for you. Remember, the lower the height of cut, the more you have to maintain. And then one last tip, if there seems to be an issue with this knob and you're trying to tighten it or loosen it and this roller is just not moving, there are 2 bolts on either side of the roller bracket. These are 17mm bolts. These 2 right here could be a little bit tight. So all you would do is take your 17mm wrench, loosen these by about 1/8 of a turn, not much, and it may loosen that up to where you can spin this freely. So second tip is oil. What type do I use? How much do I use? Where to drain it? We're gonna cover that right here. So first step is your dipstick. So your dipstick is right here on the front of the engine. So this is where you can check your oil, make sure you got oil in it, and when you refill it, make sure you've got enough in there. But the capacity on this is between 18 to 20 ounces, depending on your engine. But most of them are gonna be within the 18 to 20 ounces, which is just over 1/2 quart. And the oil type that you want is SAE 30. So just over 1/2 quart, SAE 30. That's what you need. And then recommendations on changing the oil. So when you first get your Rolux, they do give you your starter oil. You put that in there. You want to run that for about 25 hours. After 25 hours is a great time to change your oil. And then after that, about 100 hours. So usually every 8 months to a year, you'll want to change out that oil, make sure it's nice and clean for you. So once you do hit the 25 hours or 100 hours thereafter, the drain plug. So the drain plug is located right behind the mower, behind the engine, right above the assembled in the USA sticker. So this is a 10mm bolt that is fairly tight. You'll want to loosen that, and as soon as you loosen it, just like a car, you take the bolt out and the oil will start draining out after. You do want to tip this down a little bit just so that you can avoid getting oil all over the rubber drums. It does create a little bit of a mess if you don't have it tipped back enough, but you'll tip it back no more than about 20 degrees, and then that can go into a drip pan, drain pan, whatever. So a little tip to keep the oil off of the drums, you can put saran wrap on them, you can put cardboard behind it, just something that's gonna protect the oil from getting on the drums and making a little bit of a mess. Once it's drained, you'll put the 10mm bolt back in, and then you'll fill the oil right back here. So speaking of oil, that brings us to tip number 3 is do not tip your mower back more than about 20 degrees. And to get a rough idea of what that is your grass catcher that came with your Rolux, if you put it on the ground, those handlebars going back on it is about the perfect height and will not harm your engine. So what happens if you do tilt your mower back too far, tip it back on the handles, you didn't know about it, and all of a sudden your mower is starting to act a little bit weird. So oil will start to get into your combustion chamber, and when you start it, if you can start it, it'll start to blow off white smoke. It'll be really cloudy when you first start it up. That's just the engine burning that oil that has gotten in the combustion chamber. If it starts up and it does have that white smoke coming out, let it run for a couple minutes and it should go away. So the second thing that could happen if you do tilt your mower back too far is you go to pull your pull starter, you're excited to mow, and it doesn't pull. It almost seems like it's stuck. That's an indication that you have hydrolocked your engine. That means too much oil got into the chamber and we need to do a reset. So you can look up YouTube videos on how to unhydrolock a mower, especially the Honda GX160 or a Briggs & Stratton, but you can look at videos on how to unhydrolock your mower. Typically that will involve draining the oil, possibly draining the gas, and changing out the spark plugs. So it's definitely reversible. It's just a little bit annoying when it happens. So all I can say is just don't tilt your mower too far back. Keep it upright as much as you can. All right, so the fourth thing we're gonna cover today is the throttle. So for this throttle, I'm gonna give you guys a first-person view on what I'm talking about. All right, so here's the throttle right here on the right-hand side. I wanna go through some of the speed settings just so you're not confused on how this thing operates. So when you first get it, the speed setting should be in 7. This is the absolute lowest gear right here. So 7, your reel should not spin. 7 is the lowest setting. 1 is the highest setting, that's the highest RPM, so your reel will be spinning at its fastest rate when it's on 1. So when you first start your mower, you want it to be on 7. Now, some mowers may be a little bit different just because at the factory, they can't necessarily test each mower to make them all exactly the same because they can't put oil or gasoline in the engine before they send it to you. So they're set at a certain length. So some mowers may start spinning their reel at 6. Some could start spinning at 5. So just because your reel does not spin at 6 or 5 doesn't mean that anything's wrong with it. It just means that the tension is just a little bit different than some other people's. So when you start it, you're gonna be at 7. I typically like to mow in the 3rd position. So I'm mowing in the 3rd position. Sometimes I'll mow in the 4th position just if I'm casually mowing, I'm not taking a lot off, just a nice night mow, whatever it is. Something calm, I'm mowing at 4. Usually I'm mowing at 3. Once in a while I'll get to 2 or even 1 if I'm doing a heavy scalp. I need to go quick. I don't have time to be out here mowing. Go at 1 just to remove some material. But typically you want to mow at about 3 or 4. All right, so 5th and final tip is mowing. How do I mow? How do I make stripes with this thing? So first off, when you first take flight of your brand new Rolux, you're ready to stripe, you're ready to go. Sometimes people will use the left side or right side of the mower as the edge of their line. But actually, there's about a 3-inch difference between the very edge of your mower and the edge of the reel, and same thing on this side, there's about a 2-inch difference. So if you're using the edge of your mower towards the edge of your line, you're gonna create what's called mohawks in your lawn. Your lines aren't gonna be touching. So when you're mowing, you wanna make sure that you're overlapping each pass by about 1 to 2 inches on every single pass. So when you're hugging a line on that right-hand side, instead of going to the edge of your mower, you wanna make sure that the reel is overlapping that stripe by about 1 to 2 inches on this side, and then same thing over here. So always overlap your passes by about 1 to 2 inches. For this next step, let's go out to the yard. I'm gonna show you a couple tips on turning and walking with it. All right, so we're outside and we've made sure that the height of cut is where I want it to be. We have made sure that the throttle is on 7. The next step is to make sure that your switch is on the on position. Whether you have a Briggs & Stratton, Honda, Rolux branded, doesn't matter, there's gonna be an on and off switch. This is how you kill it, this is how you start it. Make sure it's on the on switch, then we're gonna go ahead and pull the pull string. So we've got it started. Since it is in the 7 position, the reel is not spinning whatsoever. You can see, I'm gonna lean it back, you can see as soon as I go to the 6 and 5 position, it starts to spin gradually. And then when I go to 3 and 2, it starts spinning a lot faster. So like I said, you wanna mow mainly in the 3rd or 4th position. All right, so before we get to mowing, I wanna talk about speed. So with any reel mower, you do not wanna walk too fast with these. There's a too fast and there's a too slow. But you wanna go at a general walking pace. You do not wanna rush through this job. You bought this reel mower for precision, for accuracy, to have your lawn look really, really nice. The last thing you want is to rush through the job because that's gonna create lines, that's gonna create unevenness. That's just gonna exaggerate any issues that you have in the lawn just because the reel cannot keep up with the speed. So make sure that you're walking at a really nice pace, a nice strolling pace. You do not want to be running, you don't want to be fast walking, and you also don't want to be crawling. so make sure your pace is good. So now that we have our pacing figured out, now let's talk about turning. So for me personally, I really like using a 3-point turn for these Rolux mowers. That just keeps the grass nice and perfect on those edges. So I'm gonna show you how I do it, and hopefully that visual kind of helps you out when you're turning your mower. All right, so now that we have our pacing down, our turning down, our throttling down, all in between, I think we're ready to mow. So have fun, enjoy it. If you have any other questions, please check out Rolux's other videos that we've put out. But otherwise, happy mowing.